Welcome to The Launch, the podcast sponsored by Tandem Launch, Canada's premier incubator. We'll talk about tech, startups, entrepreneurship, fundraising, and everything in between. If you have a research background in tech and always wanted to build your own startup, then check out our website, tandemlaunch.com, to see what we're all about. Now on with the show. So welcome everyone to another episode of The Launch podcast, sponsored by Tandem Launch. I'm your host, Bobby Bedochka, and today joining me is the co-founder and co-CEO of The51, Judy Fairburn. So welcome, Judy.
I am so happy to be here, Bobby. Thanks so much.
I love it. I love it. So tell me more about The51, why you started it.
So the 51 was co-founded by Shelley Kuipers and Alice Reimer and myself a couple of years ago. And it's a financial feminist platform and a movement, including a venture fund, where investors, entrepreneurs, and those that aspire come together. And we do that. We've created a flywheel and a community, and where we have created an opportunity for democratized access to women-led capital for women-led startups. And through that, we're building mutual wealth and also having social environmental impact. And we're doing it in a learn by doing way, where we're coming together, sharing knowledge as experience, and becoming, through that, influential investors, innovators, consumers. Our mantra is capital plus community leads to commercialization and impact. So that's key thing for us. And in just a couple of years, we've grown from 75 women just coming together in a kitchen, curious about investing in an early stage companies, to over a global community of over 18,000. We've got 110 accredited investors with us. 90% of them are women, which is relatively unheard of in Canada.
Yeah.
And Canada, across the country and growing. We have our first fund and now raising our next sector agnostic fund, and as well as an institutional food and ag tech fund with a partner. To date, we've done 30 investments, 14 in fund one and 16 before as just a community, and put $17 million of capital to work and a lot of expertise. And we've seen over 800 ventures. So we have a really good lens on what's happening in Canadian, US women-led, co-led firms, and done all kinds of investor learning sessions, our broader financial feminism community sessions as well. So
Amazing. I love it. I love that you are overtly feminist as well. I'm a pretty staunch feminist, and I love that you're really explicit about that. I'm not sure that I've seen any other VC firm, even when they are women-led or female-focused, to really be explicit. So I love that. Okay, so then, what we know about venture capital is historically, and maybe even currently, it's male-dominated. And we know that female startups and female entrepreneurs are systematically underfunded. So why do you think that's the case? And how can we advise people to sort of get out of their own paradigm of thinking?
Yeah, I think it starts with the stats that actually dropped through the pandemic, of only roughly 2.2% of the venture capital funding goes to women founders, and about 86% still goes to male-only teams. And I think thought about this a bit. We've looked at research and things of that nature, and I think it often comes down to essentially basic psychology. People found entities, they invest in what they're comfortable with, what they know, and who looks like us. And so, I think I'm an engineer, so I'm pretty familiar with being in places I've been different, and it often believe in the rule of 30%, which is once you get to 30%, then everyone feels like they have a voice, particularly that group that was less and now got there, and you just flow. Dialogue happens, etc. No one's worrying as much about being different. We're still in a state, though, however, in the venture capital realm, 2019, 12% of the general partners, those that run the funds, were women. It's a little better in 2021, 15%. And I think coming back to this philosophy of just by human nature, we tend to invest in what we know and what we care about. Women VCs are statistically more likely going to invest in women founders. And so I think we see that as an opportunity. And then we couple that with the fact that not just from the founder side, but from the investor side, the prediction is that by 2030 in Canada, over 65% of the wealth, community wealth, is going to be managed by women, through demographics, education, things of that nature. So we have the opportunity for more investors, and there's all kinds of increase. I think women in entrepreneurship is growing very quickly, 30% increase in women-owned businesses in the last 10 years in Canada. You put those two together, and a younger generation who's aspiring to be part of shaping their own future, and you've got an opportunity. That's what the 51 is all about, creating that flywheel of opportunity to unlock the financial feminist economy.
And so, I mean, there seems to be now, coming to the surface more, a greater number of male champions. So, they're more vocal about supporting women and leading the charge. And, for folks that are in charge, we do need them to lead the charge. So how can we sort of account for this trend? And do you think that this will have an impact, and maybe in what ways?
Absolutely. And I think that the business opportunity is there. And I'd say we're really at an inflection point, whether, you see it in the world of ESG or for sustainability. When the financial institutions started saying, this is what we need to see to invest, it then drives change. We're seeing that more recently, with the new the new reporting requirements that are coming out from BDC and others very recently on diversity and inclusion, and that will drive change. And we need all individuals to make the change. And, in our fund, yes, we're 90% women investors, 10% male, and we really appreciate our male champions, and very open to men that are involved. Because I think when we have a more mainstream of the population involved, it changes from a fringe opportunity to, again, the way things are changed. And women in terms of as founders, investors, becomes just a normal way that we work. And I think we've seen that same trend with respect to, impact investing. It's what's now more the ESG frame. It was very fringe, and I was very involved. I was involved in it, leading sustainability for a major corporation over a decade ago. And now think about how mainstream it is. And so when we look ahead, we really view that male champions are a critical part of evolving this, grabbing the opportunity from kind of fringe, oh, isn't that nice, a bit of a social file, to yes, this is the opportunity, the economic opportunity that also leads to social environmental impact and a better future.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where, sustainability was as a concept, as a term, was a relatively new thing. And then it started, the UN kind of started really pushing it. And then all of a sudden, everybody was adopting it. And now if you don't say you're doing something sustainably, you're kind of like in the doghouse in many ways. So you do have some male funders in your fund. So that means you do accept. Do you have a quota? Like, we want to keep the percentages a certain rate, or the more dollars the better?
I think where we're driven by is a common mission. So if you believe in the mission and the opportunity, everyone's welcome, regardless of gender, any kinds of backgrounds, and so we welcome that. And it's the opportunity that we're really driving at. And I think, one of the things that we've heard is we want to make sure it continues to be a space for those that feel, am I ready for that? That it feels like a place of learning. We heard from a number of our particularly women investors, that they hadn't participated before because they'd never been invited. So that open place of learning where we have dialogue and each teach each other, that's a core part of what we are. Again, it's capital plus community leads to commercialization. And we want men at the table to champion equality just as much as women. It's not kind of an or, it's an and at the table.
Okay, great. So, I mean, it's one thing to engage in a fundraising activity or exercise. You're a startup and I need to go raise a couple of mil. So now I got to go through the grind of doing all that. But But how did you fund the 51 itself? Like, can you speak to the process, and maybe what advice you would give if there's other aspiring female fund managers that might want to start a project like yours?
So we've approached it very much. I mean, the two co-founders, Alice and Shelley, are serial entrepreneurs, and we approach it very much from an entrepreneurial lens. And I think you need to do that because the barriers can be quite significant to getting into the financial world. And we have funded it ourselves out of the gate, complemented by the management fees that come from our funds, as well as we really appreciate our members, our investors, and our broader community that have come in and supported us with membership fees. And in return, we help them with a sense of community and learning and the like. And so it's a combination of those two things. We continue to evolve as we scale. But let's be clear, this is an entrepreneurial skin in the game venture from the outset.
Okay.
And, I think we've got lots of things that we have learned. And I think in Canada, we're doing a really good job of supporting our entrepreneurs and the like. I think emerging fund managers and those that build ventures like this, we find ourselves caught in this interesting spot because we're not really a not for profit in the traditional sense. We do have an affiliate, Movement 51, that I can get it up in a minute, but you have to start somewhere. So a smaller fund, the economics often aren't great. So we've been very creative on our business model to make it work.
Okay. And yes,
it's evolving. It's evolving. Yeah.
Amazing. And because I mean, there's a lot of VCs out there, and in many ways, I'm thinking to myself, God, not another VC fund. Like, there's already so many out there. How do we all find each other? But definitely, we could use more outfits like the 51. That would definitely, I think, help a lot. I guess it's just a matter of skin in the game and the entrepreneurial mindset behind the whole thing.
And again, I think a big differentiator for us is recognizing it takes community. And that community, we would, without our broader community, Financial Feminism has our investor community of well over 100 of them, and what they do to roll up their sleeves. It's the financial capital they bring, but it's their expertise, their networks that makes it all go. So Amazing. It's the sweet spot of it's the synergy of the two coming together. Yeah. We're not your typical venture fund is probably what I'm saying here in terms of business model.
Okay, and so do you see a difference in the way that female founders approach their pitching to investors? Do you see a difference in the way that they structure their business models? Is there something different about what they're doing, or better?
So the way that we approach, and I credit Shelley Kuipers, co-CEO with myself, is to really take a her story approach, which is understand the story of why the founders have created and are working hard on growing their business. And I think that gets at the motivation, and I think as many would say in the venture world, especially early stage, you're betting on the founders and their ability to drive it through whatever the world throws at them, and to be able to listen, to be coachable, so that they can pivot and successfully have customers buy into what they are offering, and finding that magic of product market fit. And so I think by sort of starting with understanding the story, we can figure out the founders that have got the best ability to make it, coupled with our own knowledge on our end of what we call the 51 factor, which is the ability to draw from our different experiences as entrepreneurs, business leaders, science, tech depth, governance, financial acumen, operations, all the rest of it, go to market, to be able to know how to help them then to scale their businesses. So, I think that's the way we approach it. Are women any different that we see? I think that they're probably more risk aware, is what we would normally say. And so at times we need to just give them that extra boost of confidence. And what we do find is that what many of the women founders will say, and like I said, we've touched over 800 here in the last couple of years, is that when they get around the table, they feel like they're in a place they can be comfortable. I'd call it somewhat of a safe space.
Mm.
We can talk about it. And when we do that, I like to say it's the analogy of when you truly feel you're in the driver's seat versus the passenger seat, you can go the direction you want to go.
Love it. I mean, I do talk to a lot of startups and try to help them, with their pitches and their decks and everything. And it's always very tech focused. And I try to steer them towards, well, what's your story? And, I tell them, and they invest in people, not in things. I mean, you do,
Yeah,
but
well said.
it's like there's something, and this is like across the board. This is like not even gender specific. It's like there's something about, like, I can't seem to convince them of this. It's like, no, it's not me. Who cares about me? It's this thing that I have that's going to make all this money. And I'm like, yeah, but you still gotta show up, and you gotta show who you are and what things mean to you, and you gotta show a little enthusiasm. You can't just pitch like, here's my engineering, my product, like, and here's my numbers, and do you want to invest? It's like, that's not enough. You got to do just that extra bit more, which is actually an extra bit less if you think about it.
It actually is. And I was recalling that as we sit around there, it's not the founders that have the best credentials or the best technology or the perfect pitch that often in the end we end up funding. It's those that we can sense have got a real sense of purpose. They're going to make a difference. They listen, they learn, and they're going to make it happen. Those are the ones that you want to invest in.
Love it. That is beautiful. I'm just going to keep hammering on that message to people. I'm going to keep hammering. Okay. So then tell us, what type of startups or entrepreneurs are you keen on funding, and how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So we have focused in our first fund, which closed in early 2021. So we're raising our subsequent fund there because we've had a couple of companies that are really doing well with such a wait list on women-led or co-led. And we really need the women to be equal on the cap table. They are not tokens. Let's get clear. Financial feminism is about equality. And we're focusing on sectors that matter. Particularly from a women's lens. So commerce, digital marketplaces, because women make 85% of consumer decisions. And that comes in, and then the whole wealth transfer, again, by women by the end of this decade, forecast in Canada have to be controlling 65% of the wealth. So what innovation comes through financial services in that lens, and disrupting banking. And then from a frame of we care about One Health and sustainability, so digital clean tech and women's health innovation. So those are the areas we're focused on. And I think a lot of the normal kind of things that venture investors look at, founding team, as we talked about earlier, the ability to have market opportunity, that the trends are in sync with what's likely happening, the timing's good, that they know how to work with customers, and they're already getting early customer traction. And obviously they figured out the moat, whatever that might be.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, great. And then do you have a forum on the website, or there's information
Absolutely.
on the website that they know how to, okay, they can just fill out the bits, and then
they can fill it, send it something into entrepreneur at 51 .com, and it's all there. So
excellent. Great. Well, thank you so much, Judy, for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure to be here.
And I hope everybody remembers you from last year. You did the International Women's Day special episode. And so we loved hearing from you then as well.
And thanks so much as well. I know you're interviewing some of the portfolio companies in our realm, and that's what makes this all go around.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait.
So much, Bobby. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Okay.
So thank you to our loyal listeners. Your time is always appreciated. You can follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget, if you have a technical background and you want to create your own startup, hit me up on LinkedIn and I can tell you about all the incredible opportunities at Tenem Launch. Ciao for now. Thank you for listening. We hope you had fun and gained valuable insights. If you like what you see and hear, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment, share the podcast, and follow us on social media.